This podcast is a member of WGPRN, WildGamesProductions.com.
If there's anybody here, can you make a noise? I know you can see us.
Something touched my leg.
Hello, I'm Yvette Fielding. No, really, I am. And tonight, we look at a man possessed by zombie ants, examine claims that the Georgia Guidestones are really only made of polystyrene, and explain why an iPhone really isn't a household implement. Welcome to Most Haunted, Halloween Special. Our first item comes from the haunted woods of Pennsylvania. Is there anybody here? Can you make a noise?
Shh! They're with us.
Wow, so soon? Do they know that?
Listen, there's a presence with us now. Ancient, cold, wicked. It wants to...
What was that? Derek, are you okay? Can you still...
Vince Mark.
Are you with us, spirits? Are you here?
Yes, I am.
You an ancient ghost from Pennsylvania?
Yes, that's me.
Why do you still sound like you're from Liverpool?
That doesn't matter.
Right, okay. Do you have a message for us?
Yes.
So, what is it?
Darker days.
Darker days?
Yes, you must listen to Darker Days.
Is that it? It doesn't make any sense.
Oh, Yvette, run!
Well, why? What?
Just run! It's a fucking weird chicken!
Hello, folks, and welcome to the Halloween episode of the Darker Days podcast. I am your host, along with my co-host, Mark. Mark, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing fantastic, Vince. How are you doing?
Great. If you were wondering, tuning to the show and wondering what was going on, that was a nice little piece put together by our friends from the Most Haunted staff. I wonder who those people were.
Derek and Yvette, they said.
Yeah, they did a good job. Anyway, we have a good show tonight for you guys. This is going to be focusing on the storyteller aspect of the White Wolf games in the World of Darkness. So we have three special guests with us tonight. We have the Chuck Man. Chuck, how you doing tonight? Hey.
Guys.
And we have Mr. White Wolf himself, Eddie Webb.
¿Qué pasa?
And we have Steve Wilson, American Hero. Stu Wilson, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Well, they'll be joining us tonight, giving us their 2 cents or 1 cent or whatever cent they want to give us as we dive into everything. So, Mark, why don't you dive into that mailbag and tell us what we got this week?
Yes, let's check out the mail call this week. Well, we've had a cool handful of mails over the last couple of weeks. First up, Matthew Bull writes in with some great words of support for the show. He's a new listener who ran across our show on the White Wolf news feed. So thanks for that, Matthew, and thanks again to White Wolf for publicizing our humble little podcast. Galen Fabich wrote in asking for a review of Geist, and also he suggested a side-by-side review of the 2 Malkavian clan books from Vampire the Masquerade. He also suggested doing a show based around madness and using insanity on your chronicle, with ideas from the Malkavians, World of Darkness Asylum, Changing the Lost. So I don't know. What do our listeners think about this? I think that sounds like a pretty cool idea.
Isn't every show about madness that we do?
I thought that was the obvious remark to make, but I figured I'd leave that one up to you.
All the ones featuring Chuck Wendig.
Damn it. Busted again.
Vergast writes in asking if we're going to do any more system-specific shows. To date, we've done features on Hunter, Mage, Dark Ages so far, as well as our Sabbat two-parter. And we get a lot of requests for Changeling and Vampire in general, so you can expect to see something on those coming up soon. He also sent in some very cool secret frequency suggestions about Anglesey, so thanks for that, Vergast.
Yes, thank you.
Dennis DePlane wrote in asking where to find the podcast. You can find
On
it
the
at
web.
darkerdays.tk. But if you're listening to this show, you already know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So shouts out then to our latest members, Saxon Matt, Vergast, Errant Construct, Vegas Mentat, Hugh, and Laughing Jack Wilton.
What?
That's a fantastic name, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's been doing some stuff with David Hill, actually, over at Machine Age Productions. Laughing Jack Wilton is not his real name, but it should be.
That would be a great name. All right, and for our network news, we have a bunch of shows on the WGPR network. We have Liquid Weird with The Other Mark. You can go to liquidweird.net for that. And you can also listen to our sister show, the Darkling Podcast, which was... we just had it up last week, and we talked about Demon the Return, which is made by Ivo Shander. Shander... Did I say that right, Mark?
Yes, you did.
Okay, talking about his revamp of the Demon the Fallen. And then we have our newest podcast. Well, it's actually a vidcast, Mark. Did you check it out by Zorlak in the community?
Yeah, the Exalted vidcast. He's also got 4 or 5 episodes up. It's a great show focusing on Exalted with some super cool ideas and great coverage of the Exalted game. You can find that at www.youtube.com/user/Exalted podcast. But if you can't remember that, Earl, just go to YouTube and type in Exalted podcast and you'll find it right away. Go watch the show. But not now. Listen to us first.
No,
then go watch it.
Yeah, you can afterwards. Okay, let's move on to everybody's favorite segment and Mark's Spotlight.
It's under the stairs.
Yes, welcome one and all to the Secret Frequency, where today we bathe ourselves in rains of blood. Now, this item was originally submitted by Law over at our forums, so thanks, Law. We've got a lot of Secret Frequency submissions in the bag at the moment, and thanks to everyone who's been sending them in. But this one had just the right degree of Halloween horror for tonight's show. The story is a grisly one, which is what we like after all. It goes back 150 years, to February the 15th, 1850 to be precise, near the town of Clinton in North Carolina, when blood and body parts rained from the sky over the farm of one Thomas Clarkson. Now, reports from the North Carolinian newspaper state that this shower of flesh and blood was about 250 to 300 yards in length. The body parts appeared to be flesh, liver, intestines, brains, and blood. Some of the blood ran on the leaves, moist and fresh. 3 of Clarkson's children were caught in the gory shower and ran to their mother, exclaiming, "Mother, there is meat falling!" Well, they probably didn't sound like that, but I can't do a North Carolina accent, so you have to do that yourself at home. By the time their mother went to investigate, the shower was over, but the flesh and blood was still lying about all over the place, and a neighbor confirmed the report. One of his own children had been nearby and reported the smell of blood. Apparently, during the shower, there was a red cloud hanging overhead, but no rain fell from it. Well, no normal rain, at any rate. They were able to get some of the flesh and blood examined under the microscope, and it was determined to be real flesh and blood, though they couldn't confirm whether it came from people or animals. As if that wasn't enough, it happened again, 34 years later, and once more over North Carolina, over the farm of a Silas Beckworth, to be specific. This time it was witnessed by the wife of a black tenant farmer named Mrs. Kit Lassiter. She reported that blood fell on the ground, bushes, trees, and on her head. The Chatham Record newspaper reported that many neighbors and even a local physician came out to check the spot after hearing Mrs. Lassiter's story. All of them said that an area of ground 60 feet in circumference was covered in splotches of blood, and an examination of the trees in this place showed blood on the branches. The droplets varied in size from a small pea to that of a man's finger, and they were averaging about 1 drop for every square foot. The smaller drops had been instantly absorbed into the earth, whereas the larger ones coagulated for all to see. And in the second case, the sky was apparently cloudless, with almost no wind to speak of. Now, a few explanations were offered at the time. Could the blood have come from animals dying there, or perhaps the slaughter of pigs or other livestock? Of course, while that explains the blood, it doesn't explain it raining from the sky. Could it have been some bird of prey passing over, or carrying a bleeding animal? It would have to be a pretty large animal if so, like, an elephant. Other than these rather feeble attempts to explain the phenomena, no real explanation has ever been forthcoming. So, rains of blood. Lacking any real presence of pharaohs in their firstborn in North Carolina, we have a wonderfully bloody mystery on our hands here. What kind of explanations might we devise for World of Darkness games? Now, over at our forums, Beckett suggested that this is what happens when mages, werewolves, wraiths, and Eastern Kindred attempt to nuke the Ravnos Luvian and fail twice. Ivo Shandor came up with an awesome idea, namely that it could be the result of the first attempts to time travel back to the past, or even the 3000th and 3001st attempts at time travel. I mean, who knows how many times this has happened in areas where people didn't notice. Or it could be the remains of someone that got trapped in the shadow. At some point, everything material gets pushed out after all. Now, I thought you could maybe do something cool with the lost colony of Roanoke. Roanoke's an island, of course, and so somewhat removed from the area of rain. But riffing on Evo's idea, perhaps the Roanoke colonists fled from some terrible menace into the spirit world or forged through time with gruesome results. This bloody rain is all that remained of them and their ill-fated escape attempt. And if you're a Werewolf the Apocalypse player, you have the Croatan tribe to play with in the area as well. Tying these events into a ferocious battle with servants of the Worm makes for a neat explanation too. North Carolina was also the site of the Wright brothers' first flights at Kitty Hawk. Maybe others tried airborne flights before the Wright brothers, with considerably less success. Adventurous mystics might have tried to harness the power of spirits of the air to carry them aloft, but found that their plans literally came apart at the seams. And finally, North Carolina gets a few tornadoes as well. Not many, true, but enough to use in-game. Wayward weather patterns combined with mass slaughter could also be used as a way to develop these incidents further. Murderous cultists, Nefandi, or the followers of the Prince of 100,000 Leaves. Any of these could have produced the kind of bloodshed that could later have been born into the heavens to be scattered onto an unsuspecting Earth. And, of course, we should ask ourselves what part our two farmers, Mr. Clarkson and Mr. Beckworth, had to play in this affair. Innocent parties? I think not. So there you have it, raining blood. Seeing as we have three esteemed guests of the horror genre on our show, I also thought I'd throw this one open to you guys. What would you make of this? Is this something that you figure you could use in a horror game? And
I will never go to North Carolina as long as I live, based on that.
Man, I lived there. I won't go back. I think I did it.
Actually, one of our editors, Genevieve Podleski, she lived for a time in North Carolina, and she calls it the Forest of Endor because it's just like huge masses of trees where you just totally get lost in and wander around and not know where you're at for days at a time.
Cool.
But the first thing I thought of when I heard this is actually I thought this is what happens when you are a really arrogant mage and accumulate too much paradox.
Yeah.
Explode.
Literally.
Yes.
Massive paradox backlash, yeah, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my first response is I go to either one of two Hunter the Vigil explanations because I'm a giant Hunter the Vigil the Whore.
No.
I know.
No.
I'm blushing. Either first of all the Chiron group did an experiment that went very, very poorly. Some sort of awful, prosthetic limb factory went explodey. I don't know. But in the horror recognition guide, Wood plays in 10 photographs with this whole idea of interstitial terrain.
I was thinking 10 photographs actually.
Yeah,
too.
see, and it's this great kind of thing where what is passing over from another, plane, and is this, are these farms even there all year round? Like what, there's some kind of nice crossover there between parallel dimensions.
But actually, now that you mentioned Vigil, also, this if you put Bad Moon Farm in North Carolina, there's their lair too for the Bad Moon Farm, Black Moon Farm.
Black Moon, yeah. Yeah, that would actually really work there.
Yeah, really, it would.
Yeah, sorry, North
Awesome.
Carolina.
Stu, what do you think about all this?
I had a couple of ideas. First of all, I know people have said about paradox making mages explode, but what if it's not the mages who explode, but they're doing the exploding? Something under each of these farms requires a blood sacrifice to live. Only thing is, the only people who found out about this found out about it a little too late and had to give a lot of blood in a very short time span.
Cool.
Oh
Nice.
fuck! It's Cthulhu! Quick, grab Frank!
Grab Frank, strap him to some dynamite. There you go. Instant sacrifice.
Man, that's the
Hey,
messiest,
guys!
awesomest way to
Guys!
sacrifice me.
Hell yeah. The
So
other one,
usually it's sort of like sacrificial daggers and robes. You know, just blow a dude up. There we go.
Sacrificial dynamite, absolutely.
it's
That's
the
food
ultimate.
for Cthulhu.
Bring forth the Eldritch H2O. Yeah.
Hey, it's pragmatic. You know, it's the sort of human sacrifice I could see the Sons of Ether getting into.
Yeah.
Go.
You know, the other one ties into the Wright brothers and their flights. I'm not sure if any of you read Alan Moore's Tom Strong comics, but
Bits of it, yeah, little bits.
there was a plot there where the spirits of the air that allowed human beings to achieve flight had finally got pissed off enough that they rescinded that gift. And yeah, what if these were the forerunners to the Wright brothers going up there, trying to make the bargain and getting everything a bit wrong? Because, you know, the second you make a slip-up of etiquette when you're dealing with spirits, either in the classic or new Worlds of Darkness, you're on the receiving end of a hell of a lot of pain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're just going to shred you.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you, Mark. And thank you. And where you found that from Law on the forums? You said, huh?
Law, yeah. She's submitted like 6 or 7 in the last few days, but this was the first one that she put up a couple of weeks ago. She actually has maps of the area, and look like Google Earth images of the farms and stuff. So if you want to get more details on that, head on over to our forums, and you'll if you look in the secret frequency thread there, you'll see the original submission. Good stuff.
At darkerdays.tk. And our email address, Mark?
darkerdaysradio@gmail.com.
Awesome. Okay, now we said this show is basically focused around storytellers and writing a story for your game session each week and planning out everything. So we got our 3 guests here, and we planned some questions out and some talking points. And the first one we would think about when you're writing your story is plan your story in advance. You can't say that too much. You have to plan. You have to plan. You have to plan. So if you were getting ready, how would you get started? How often would you write some stuff? And how much should you plan in advance? Let's start with Mr. Eddie Webb.
It's actually kind of interesting because unless I'm doing like a convention game where I have to have a very rigid structure, a lot of times I'll come to the table with a page and a half of notes and just go, let's see how this works. I actually don't plan a whole lot, but most of my planning occurs before the game even begins. Before we do the Chronicle at all, I'll say, okay, we're going to do, say we're going to do a vampire game set in the 80s in Miami. You guys are playing spot vampires, go. And people make characters, and from there I'll go, well, that character has an interesting quirk I want to play with, and I'll pull from that a lot. And then, but it also comes to the table before I even start with the Chronicle and say, okay, I'd like to see a scene with a Colombian drug runner. I'd like to see a scene with a guy bathing in his own blood. I want to see a scene with demon sacrifice. And so I kind of have these bullets of cool moments that I think would be awesome in the Chronicle, and then come to the game table, go, okay, here's the cool moment I want to bring up. How can I tie this with the players? What makes the most sense given what's gone on in the past and where I kind of see things going? And I'll take a page and a half of notes, and usually it's like scene, this kind of stuff. And actually, I use the SAS format in the storyteller goal and PC goals, and it's really kind of my notes for the entire scene. You know, ST goal is introduce Fabio sooner. Player goal is try not to get screwed over by Fabio sooner. You know, so I'll come to it with that kind of preparation, but I don't do a lot of the pages and pages and pages and pages of preparation that a lot of other storytellers do.
Right. Okay, and Chuck, how would you do topic number 1 in hand?
I'm going to be completely lame and just go with me too. I mean, that's, I don't bring a ton of notes to the table. I'll do a page and a half, just like Eddie. Mostly, I think it's best to leave it to that character creation session, to leave it to the players. Encourage the players to do as much world building as possible. Anything from, there's an arcade down on 7th where the arcade machines, give you secret codes that summon demons, whatever. I mean, you let them just play in that world, and you give them the permutations. Obviously, we're going to play Sin Eaters, we're going to play, Hunters, whatever we're doing here. And they're going to give you a ton of really awesome threads that you can sort of pick up. From there is where I like to build the story, because if usually you bring a big story to the table and it's got this great, labyrinth of facts and this, giant net of information, you're going to be very disappointed when they go completely away from that and just you're like, well, but I did this awesome story, and they're like, yeah, but we like this over here.
Yeah, no plot survives contact with the players.
Oh yeah,
right. So we've all had that happen, and I think the best way to avoid that is to not step into that trap in the beginning and just let the players be awesome.
Be awesome, yes.
Indeed.
And Stu, how would you handle the situation?
I can't even say me too because Chuck's already taken that one.
Go with B3.
Yeah.
What see?
This is just one of those things where there's a few general styles and lots of people glom onto each of them. So rather than handling the big picture, which the other guys have done so wonderfully, one specific tool I found that really helps make it work: buy a big pack of index cards. Jot down single sort of scene notes, ideas, scenes you want to see, brief character bios, whatever, onto an index card. Give a whole bunch out to your players, come with some already prepared so they can see what sort of thing you're gunning for. Spread it all out, gather them in at the end of the character creation session. You will have a huge pack of awesome ideas. Then, find a corkboard or a spare bit of wall that you don't like or whatever. Stick the index cards up, start making links with bits of string, and before you know it, you will have something that will last. No matter what the characters do, you can always find something to tie them in.
It sounds very much like a collaborative mind map for the Chronicle.
It really is. I'm hot on this.
Of course,
I like
you are
the idea of
I know. I'm hot for mind maps right now.
I like the idea of giving a bunch of blank ones to the players, and then collecting them in at the end. So put on. That's really cool.
We've always
with
done
me,
this. Oh, go ahead, Mark. I'm sorry.
No, with me, I just get bored. That's the main reason that I can't get into heavy prep. I used to, in my younger days, I would sit and write pages and pages. But these days, 20 minutes to an hour, I'm bored. And so I've got to be able to, whatever prep has to be just a few notes in that time, and then 2 or 3 weeks of crazy plotting in my head either side of it. But yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
String.
That's one of those things. As you sort of, one of the things I've found since obviously graduating from university, moving on to having full-time jobs and you just don't have the time to write out all the notes that you used to.
No.
Amen.
And if you think about it, you're often sitting down at the same table or in the same chat room on the same Skype chat, whatever, as all these other fantastically creative people. Why not steal some of them? Steal some of their juice. Get it all working for you.
Do you actually mean steal the person? Oh, sorry.
Steal their soul, juice it, and drink it for power. I think that's what Stu's saying.
I think that's what Stu is advocating, yes. Stealing souls.
Right. Good call. I'm with it.
It kind of relates to that, actually. One trick that maybe a pin of a now, a lot of people may have heard of it, but for running mysteries, this actually worked well for me for noir stories specifically, is you throw a bunch of stuff out there and then listen to what the players think is going on, then backtrack one step, change one detail, and say that's the answer.
Hell yes.
Nice.
Totally.
Works every time.
Yeah. No, that's good. We have a thing at our table we call the cup, which is not a thing you wear around your special area.
I hope that's not on the table.
You said it was.
Well, I wanted to clarify that for the audience. They all know.
Because I'm sure everyone was just thinking that, Chuck.
I know they were. I know how.
Well, if they were you, they probably would be. I'm sure Dave's listening to the show thinking the same thing, too. So.
Well, we just won't talk about that. In the cup goes a horrible pastiche of scary, weird, bizarro ideas. Everybody submits little ideas. It might be a character trait, it might be a merit, it might be a dark secret. They all go into the cup. We usually do a few different rounds of this, maybe a few during character creation and then 1 or 2 during each session. And it kind of randomizes the game a little bit. And it keeps everything fresh, and of course, that is the absolute antithesis to preparation, which is what you asked. But it still keeps everybody kind of on their toes and contributing.
Excellent. Okay. Now they always say that if you don't care about your antagonists or your NPCs, that your players won't care about them. How much planning do you think you should put into making up your antagonists or your NPCs, or do you think you should just do it on the fly and who cares? Let's start with random person A.
It really depends on what role the NPC has in the Chronicle. I mean, for the past certain number of years that I won't mention when I've been running games, I often come to the table with a list of like 20 random names, male names, female names, and last names. And people say, hey, who's the waitress? I'll just cross off the first name, my female name I see, and say it's blah. And those kinds of walk-on roles, I don't plan for them, but more often than not, they seem to get a life of their own.
They sure do. I'm with you.
And because if you have any detail, the players for some reason think, well, this is important. Even though if you go, listen, every person you've talked to, I've given the same amount of detail to, and they just, this one must be important. It's like, God damn it. So there is some of that, but at the same time, I do agree that if there is a character that the players need to follow, the big bad, or the main villain, or even the character they have to try to find and follow, whatever it ties the Chronicle together, then yes, a lot of time, or at least energy is put into that character. And one thing I do that I think many writers do is I steal from around me as much as possible. I base it off of people from my childhood, from someone I saw at work. Well, my work, it's a lot of strange people. Just people I see at the bus stop. I have a notebook, and every time I see someone interesting, I just jot down 50-year-old Hispanic man, talks in Spanish, seems very obsessed with maps, and that becomes a character in my game possibly. So a lot of times I don't prepare so much as go, oh, I remember that guy from 5 years ago, he'd be perfect here, and just use that guy.
So if you're at a bus stop in Georgia and you see a creepy guy with a notebook taking down notes looking at you, you know who it is.
That's probably Justin Achille, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's
I kind of do a similar thing to Eddie. I'm not sure if anyone's read Shadows of the UK, but I still owe about half of the werewolf characters detailed in that book a drink for their appearance. Other than that, I find not so much the names, but just a list of random personality traits.
Yeah.
Just one for every throwaway NPC, because no matter how often I try to make them different, if I don't have something like that on hand, every barman, every waitress in a diner, anyone they meet on the street is going to have the exact same personality.
Yeah.
And that really starts getting cardboard cut out after a while. So I find it really helps. Short list, cross off one for every bit part character. If it turns out that they get a much bigger role in the story as time goes on, you can develop that. Or hey, just cross off the next two and blend them together.
Now, what do you guys do if your bit character all of a sudden suddenly becomes a major part? Like your PCs get annoyed at them and decide to just beat the crap out of them.
Well, yeah, you joke. Again, like Eddie, I've been gaming for X number of years. We'll just go with somewhere between 1 and 100.
Closer to 100.
We had a cab driver in the game. It was he was just a cab driver. I call a cab, and there is a guy driving it. That's just a normal thing. No big deal. That guy became like a rock star in the entire game. He was in every session. He was driving. They called him specifically because they didn't want different people seeing the kinds of things they saw. So he was always this cab driver, and it was like, well, my God, I have to really think of this guy now. So whenever someone meets a character in game, or I have to conjure some new, waitress or cab driver, God forbid, I usually like to put 2 to 3 character adjectives, traits, and then 2 to 3 skills that I think, even if they're not good at, that sort of embody that character, and I add to it as I go if I have to. But those 3 usually get me through, giving them a relatively full personality in a short time, and allows me to remember what they're like going forward.
Yeah, and the World of Darkness. Sorry, carry on, man.
I was going to say, I don't remember who I got this from. I got a number of years ago. I heard it at con, but it was a great rule of thumb is that for those kind of spontaneous characters, every session players talk about them, you should add another layer to their personality.
Oh.
So, the first session you meet them, they're just a cab driver. If you call them again the next session, it's the cab driver who has a wife at home. If they call him the third session, he has a secret betting habit. If you call him the fourth session, he's really a werewolf. If you call him the fifth session, he's trying to eat your face, something. But each time they bring that NPC back, you add something to it, and then after a certain point, you have to make that kind of organic decision to go, okay, promote this guy to major NPC status, do more with him. But if they keep drawing back on it, give them just one more thing.
Yeah,
I like that.
Cool. Well, I was just going to say that, I mean, you know, with improvising characters has suddenly attained greater importance in the story. The World of Darkness system is it's easy to do. I mean, you've got, you know, attribute plus ability. They're only rated 1 to 5, and 2 is the average, and 3 is better than normal. So you can wing a stat out of nowhere, really. And I think that's a real strength of the system.
And even you even need to do that if you just go like, you know, hey, it's a cab driver, he's got die pool of 5.
Yeah.
You just pick from 1 to 10.
Well, this is where I plug Block by Bloody Block with bit players. I'm just throwing it out there, Eddie. I'm just throwing it out.
Oh yeah, no, that was awesome. I fell in love with that section. Go ahead and describe it for those who haven't got it yet.
Go ahead,
Tell about that.
What's that? I'm sorry. What happened? What happened?
I said, for those who don't have it, go ahead and tell them about that section.
Oh yeah, bit players allows you to basically have 3 traits that kind of define your actual 3 stats that define a character very fast. Your physical, mental, social, and boom, there you go. Now you have at least some quick numbers to kind of work with, and how you could derive other roles, defense or health or stuff from them. So.
Oh, cool. Well, we had David Hill on the show just last week, and he talked about Damnation City, which I'd heard of but never seen. So I finally managed to get a copy, and that just completely blew me away. So as a ready resource that listeners or gamers can go to, that has a lot of the kind of things that we've been talking about just now: lists of 1 or 2 sentence NPCs, lists of personality traits, flip a book open, grab a guy, grab a scene, grab a location. So yeah, that's very much the kind of thing that I would go to if I was running low on inspiration myself.
Yeah, Damnation City is probably the best 4 books we've ever written for Requiem. There's just so much in that book. It's just why is this one book?
It is. It's a boat anchor, man. It's amazing. It's huge.
That's massive.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay. Well,
cool.
Speaking about,
did you guys ever read the Troika system that was printed in the back of the digital web sourcebook for Mage years ago? And never could understand what it was doing there. Yeah. Well,
vaguely.
Well, the idea is you take things like names, locations, plot twists, conflicts, dilemmas, cool background noise, and for each category you make 3 things, and then you kind of jumble these up and pick them out of like you're picking tools out of a toolbox in game. It's in the back. Sorry, go ahead.
Over the Edge, which is a system by John Tweet from the early '90s, they had a book called The Cut-Ups, which was reference to a faction inside the game, but in there they actually had a system where you would go to a newspaper and cut out interesting words and just put them all into a cup. And actually that was the character creation system, was you pull out a bunch of words, okay, these are your traits, make them work, here's the amount of dice you have to assign to them.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that is a brilliant book. Anyone who's listening, it's called Whether the Cuckoo Likes, Hunt It Down.
That's it, yes.
Yes, I treasure my copy. This is truly a thing of genius.
Yeah, I have mine as well.
Well, I don't
That's
have
worth looking at.
Well, we'll get you one, Chuck. Don't worry.
Thank you. All right.
It's in the mail right now.
Damn it! Damn it!
Okay. Well, moving on to the question of the larger theme. Yeah, there's years and years of great groundwork been laid by classic horror novels, horror movies, TV shows, comic books, etc., etc. Now, one of my personal approaches is to open these things and just steal some more.
Jeez,
this is something that you guys would get a lot of use out of? Or are there various approaches that you would take to get the most out of someone else's work? Any particular books or movies or shows that you'd recommend that are sources of good ideas, or just give you that special creative spark?
The tingly feeling.
I'll just stab wildly at my screen and go Stu.
Anything written by Grant Morrison. Find it, track it down. It's packed full of so many throwaway lines and ideas. One sentence is good enough. You steal that one sentence, you can build certainly 1 to 3 gaming sessions around it. One single throwaway item in one of the Doom Patrol collections. Yeah, it's a TV that only picks up broadcasts from hell. It's just throwaway. It's in the background, and just think about all the fun you could have with that.
And the Invisibles is just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I like the 7 Soldiers of Victory too for just pure good new World of Darkness weirdness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. Everything he writes seemed, or at least for a certain period, everything he wrote has that sort of core of high weirdness that you can just turn to
he's also
and
attempting
mine.
to perform magic by writing it to some degree. So
well, yeah.
Wicked. Well, I was kind of.
Go on.
I get a lot of my inspiration from my RSS reader. I mean, I subscribe to a lot of just weird blogs, Boing Boing, BBC, Wired, and while there's definitely a geek slant to that, generally people, hey, look at this weird, cool thing, and I actually have a series of bookmarks just called Idea Mine, which is, hey, this is something cool that I'll throw into a game or a book or a story later, and stuff like I posted to Twitter a few weeks back. It was sentient fungus. This fungus that gets into people and actually starts taking over insects. And it's just like, holy fuck, that's cool. I have to use that somewhere.
I'm a big fan of any of those spores and fungi that do that. I mean, by fan, I mean, obviously, I don't write it love letters or anything.
You'd be surprised.
No.
This is Chuck we're talking about here.
Yeah, Chuck.
Chuck is sentient fungus.
I know, that's actually all I am. I'm just a pile of fungus.
Going back to the question a little, one of the other big sources of inspiration, I think it was Greg Stolze, if that's how you pronounce his name. It was him or John Tynes said that the greatest horror fiction being written is actually shelved in the crime section.
Yeah.
And I'd agree with them. David Simon, the guy who did a lot of research for Homicide: Life on the Street and The Wire, he has several books out sort of detailing his experiences while he was researching these shows, and they are chock full of things you can mine for a horror game. You don't need to put a supernatural slant on it, because it shows the inhumanity that man will show to other man.
One of the best things I did when I started becoming a horror writer is in the town I lived in. I was lucky enough to be able to ride with 2 police officers for a night shift on a weekend. And so it was 8 hours with these 2 cops, and they were really, really sweet to me. But they were in the gang unit, specifically the youth gang unit. And so they went to all the nastiest crime-ridden areas, and this is northern Ohio. So they're, these pretty nasty areas around the Cleveland area. And just some of the shit I saw there. I mean, there's one time where they gave me this little bulletproof vest thing, and I wore that. And after like a few hours, I just didn't even notice it. But we pulled up to this one hotel, and one of the partners goes in. They asked me to stay in the car. I was like, sure, no problem. Then the other one goes in, and suddenly one of them runs back out to the car and says, "Get down, stay there until we tell you to get back up." I'm like, okay, sure. Turns out that they went to a domestic dispute call. The boyfriend wanted to get drugs off the girlfriend. The boyfriend didn't like the answer the girlfriend gave him. Shot her, shot their son, shot the guy who came to the door just at random to see what was going on. He had just completely lost his mind and was shooting at whatever was there. And he very well would have killed both those cops and me if he had known that we were all there. I mean, they managed to apprehend him, but I was just like, the fact that someone can just lose it like that, and I was like, this is... put a layer of vampires or werewolves on top of that's really fun and engaging, but really people are the most horrific thing I've ever seen.
By the way, this is where we find out that Eddie was actually killed that night, and he is a ghost speaking to us now.
From beyond the grave.
I'm a sin eater.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I like nonfiction stuff too, for the horror angle. As much as I do like horror fiction, for the most part, I for inspiration wise and for the kind of material I use for, be it writing or games, I tend to find it from history books or true crime stuff. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really great nonfiction material out there that will provide you with real life craziness.
Yeah, well, I like the idea of tapping into the RSS or seeing what's coming up on the news blogs. There was a fantastic story a couple of weeks ago, about the Large Hadron Collider, where a couple of top-notch scientists reckon that it's sabotaging itself from the future.
Yep.
Which I just thought, whoa.
Yeah.
Well, it makes perfect sense. It's the time machine theory, whereby if you have a time machine that'll let you travel back into the past, it'll only let you travel back as far as when the time machine first started to exist.
Did you see that movie Climber?
In order to not fully collapse the future, to simply be that one instant, because when you've got a time machine, what are you going to look at? You're going to look at the first time machine. So all of a sudden, you go from having this unfixed future to, in massive flux, to having everything happening at once. Very much, just to tie this back into gaming, like one of the scenarios presented for Ascension in Mage the Ascension. And you have sort of, it's the end of the future as one moment. Yeah. So it's not quite as crazy as it sounds. It's still crazy, but
Not quite gibbering, maybe slightly above ranting.
Yeah, it's about that.
There's a great time travel movie called Primer. I don't know if you guys picked it up, and it has that exact same idea.
Oh yeah, that's a great little indie movie. They made that for cheap too. It's so simple and so
Like
strange.
no budget, yeah.
Yeah, no budget.
Yeah.
Great.
Very, very cool.
Gotta love those no-budget movies.
Yeah.
Speaking about that no-budget movies, the Paranormal Activity out there, I haven't yet to see that, but I heard that's a great experience. Anyone check that out recently?
Not yet, but I've heard really good things about it. One of the guys at the office was telling me that it was actually really kind of cool and creepy and something a little bit different than she had seen before. So that's
Yeah, it's nice to see, that the torture porn genre is maybe going to be submerged beneath the creepy subtlety again.
If I see the fucking Saw movie, I'm going to shoot myself. Dear God.
But you're going to shoot yourself with some crazy contraption like in the Saw movies, because
that'd be awesome. Yeah, like some Rube Goldberg thing.
just to prove your distaste of Saw.
Yeah, well, we have to find out in 6 movies what's inside the box from movie 1, so,
What's in the box? Nothing. Fuck off. Go away.
Gwyneth Paltrow's head again.
Lots of money.
You know me.
It's his sled, and it's called Rosebud.
Wait, can it be Gwyneth Paltrow's head called Rosebud? Because that's fun. Or on a sled.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
All of them in one.
How about on a stick?
A head on a sled. Yeah, good.
It'll be a Kaiser Soze mug sitting next to it.
It's the box of every plot twist ever.
Nice.
No, it's actually... nothing, never mind. Okay, let's...
Grandma sleeps in there at night.
Actually, that's Chuck's home, and they didn't want to reveal that, so...
No, we don't want to.
Back on track. Talking about...
Oh my God, really?
We've seemed to have gone off track now. Doing research for your story, the background of your story, how much time or effort are you guys going to put into any of that? Or, I mean, should you know your setting? Say, like, if you want to pick Los Angeles or Chicago, or you just like to grab one of the pre-made White Wolf settings because that's what you're supposed to plug and say, and let's go with Chuck on that one.
Everyone knows that White Wolf Project don't research.
No, we don't.
No. No, I don't research anything. I just make stuff up. I didn't even know England was a country, and I just started writing a book about it. Whatever. So whatever. I think it's in Africa. I'm not even sure. Yeah, no, I mean, I actually think as far as... I think with plot you can do too much and over prepare, but as far as background and both historically and as far as your physical setting goes, I don't think you can do enough research on that, because you may not use it all, but you'll always have just this great buffet table of little nuggets you can sort of pick up and like, oh hey, you're here and there's this thing and it's whatever's at this club or whatever's. There's this weird bridge. Stu, maybe you know about this. I think it's in Scotland. I was just reading about this the other day, where
This
there's
is
a
the dog bridge.
The dog bridge, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's true. The suicide dog bridge? That's crazy.
We've lost 3 dogs on that bridge.
What's that?
We've lost 3 dogs on that bridge. It's not funny.
Are you serious? You're
No.
Of course, it's like 12.
47.
I'm gonna hang up. Yeah, I say you can't do enough information. Honestly, there's just a great deal of research, and you're gonna thank yourself when you need to reach for something cool.
like one of the nuggets on a buffet table.
Right.
That dog bridge is one of the things that Law submitted during this week. She came up with like 5 creepiest places on Earth, and that Sedlec Monastery was one of them. Actually, the Monastery of Skulls.
Yeah, that was in a practice this week, right?
That's right. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Aokigahara forest with the all the 500 suicides.
Yeah.
That's a great World of Darkness thing, because there's people there who go treasure hunting to find like what was in the wallets of all the dead people. People find credit cards and keys.
Oh,
and there's a whole World of Darkness story right there.
Oh hell yeah!
That's a big thing, especially when, having read all of this true crime, you sort of discover how much preparation that most suicides go through. So you've got to think, if they're still carrying keys, still carrying credit cards, was it really suicide?
Right.
Cool.
Yeah, actually, I was talking to Russell Bailey about that the other day, because I had written a short story involving suicide, and he was like, no, actually, suicides go through much more preparation than that, and he's going on that, most times they'll have everything very neatly packed up, and we'll go through a series of motions before they commit the act. And I was like, oh, so, this happens occasionally. He said, no, very frequently. So that blew me away and helped me to kind of, I was just swimming with story ideas at that point in time. I was like, what happens if you're not prepared, or if you over-prepare, or, what if something changes last minute? Of course, I was running in Geist at the time, so it was very there's a lot of Geist ideas for the prepared suicide versus the unprepared suicide, but still, it was really engaging.
Oh, yeah. The big rule for any sort of victim you see on the pavement, if they're wearing glasses, they were pushed or slipped or fell. If they've taken them off, it was suicide.
Interesting.
Something as small as that. That's really neat.
It's like going to sleep.
Yeah.
You've been watching too much CSI lately, haven't you, Stu?
Oh, God.
I live on a diet of law and order.
Secretly, Stu's actually just been killing people. He's just been putting he just noticed
yeah.
with the glasses thing.
Well, that's how you...
I am the modern day Jessica Fletcher, only, male.
Yeah, I hope so. That's how he gets inspiration for writing his stories for White Wolf. He just murders people and writes about it.
It's all true. Steve,
yeah.
American
Oh,
murder.
yeah.
American murderer, yes. We've
American Psycho.
redubbed you.
By the way, if you're looking for evidence on White Wolf and how you should burn our books and not buy our products, please don't listen to this podcast. For the love of God. But going back to research, actually, I kind of cheat because my wife is a physical anthropologist. She actually is going towards her degree in studying human remains.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
And,
cool.
she actually spent a fortnight in London studying at the Natural History Museum there, studying some of their remains from like the 19th century, because she's doing this thesis on 19th century and arthritis. And so she went to Washington, D.C., she went to London doing all this research, and I even mention CSI around her, she goes into a frenzy and foams and goes, "It's all wrong! It's horribly wrong!"
Yeah, I've heard.
But it's really been fascinating because I can, call my wife up at work and go, "So what happens with that body about 2 weeks after they've been killed? They're left into a running car." And she's like, "Well, this will happen, and blah 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 blah. Their skin will slough off in this direction, and they'll smell a bit like this." And it's like, "Okay, cool. Thank you very much, honey. I love you."
That's fantastic.
That's some great first date talk.
Love and Corpses, the Eddie Webb story.
And it's great. The other great thing is that when she eventually gets her doctorate, I can call her Dr. Webb, and she'll become the best Spider-Man villain ever.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. Well, I mean, on the front of research, how helpful do you find it to set games in places that you've lived in or have visited very often? Or, I've got a recurring Mage game that's set in Manchester, where I haven't lived for many years, but I spent a few years there, and it's my go-to place, no matter where I happen to be living at the time.
That's interesting because I've gone both directions with mixed success. For a long time, I set most of my games in Cincinnati because I lived there for 5 years, and Cincinnati is wonderfully creepy in a very underground kind of way, which is perfect for a lot of the kind of modern noir or horror games that I tend to run. Like, for example, they have an underground subway that they started building for like 2 years and then just stopped, and no one knows why, but tunnels are still there, but there's no subway whatsoever. And so that's just begging. I've run like 3 or 4 stories based on that fact alone. It's really kind of interesting. And so sometimes, like when I first moved to Atlanta, I ran a couple of games for people who had lived in Atlanta, and I still set them in Cincinnati because I was not comfortable with Atlanta, but the players were. And so I didn't want to get caught up in details by setting it in Atlanta.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, by setting it someplace that the players are familiar with and you're at least passively familiar with, it does have a sense of immediacy. Interestingly, I did a game set in London, England, but all the players at the table had visited London or spent a significant time there. My wife and I had been 5-6 times. My roommate has been there a couple times. My friend Kelly Barnes, she actually did some schooling there. So we're all familiar with the area enough as players that we could kind of speak the same language, but not so overly familiar that someone would say, "Well, no, that's actually not like that." So we were familiar enough that we all kind of, I could say, it looks like this, or it's this area. And go, okay, I know where, Whitechapel is, or I know where Westminster's at. But not like, well, if it's on this street as opposed to that street, you don't know that much detail. So that was extremely useful. But it really depends on what the players are into. I've even run fictional cities, and I think that's actually the worst option I found.
Yeah,
because no one has any sense of kind of common ground.
Yeah, it's sort of way too made up, and first of all, it also puts a lot of work on you. I only said games and places I've been because it's just easier for me to, even if the players haven't been there, I feel like I can more accurately convey a mood. Every place you've been has a feel to it. I mean, I was just out in LA, and that has its own feel. You go to London, that certainly has its own feel. They all have their own kind of mood and theme kind of going on, and I think you can harness that if you've been there and portray it to the players without having to worry if they've been there or not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought that was interesting about Damnation City is there's actually a made up city at the back there in the back of the book. I think it's called Newcastle or something.
Yes.
I don't know how that works in play though.
I've had some people say it worked fantastic success, and also some people really enjoy having that distance because I actually ran into a player at a convention a few years ago. And she said she never plays in places she lived because she didn't want to think of places she's lived in the sense of horror. And so having a fictional city made her feel like she could get involved in the horror more because it wasn't real. There wasn't that kind of emotional connection. It's not like, there's one thing to find a dead body splattered on the pavement. It's another thing to have a dead body splattered on the pavement next to the place where you bought your first dog.
Right.
So I can see that kind of distance, but for me, that's actually a feature, not a bug. I like the fact that, oh my god, this horrible thing happens someplace that I've been. That makes the horror more real and therefore more kind of resonates, and I think gets the proper mood going.
Yeah, I agree.
Speaking about mood and horror, what do you guys consider going too far? Well, I shouldn't ask Chuck this question, but what do you consider what's going too far with horror? Stu, what would you think about that?
The trick with going too far is knowing what everyone around the table is comfortable with. If the people you're playing with aren't comfortable with something, it's important to know in advance, because it could be something perfectly normal. Well, I say perfectly normal within the context of horror. So a character's dog is kidnapped and returned to them in 3 boxes, say. But
that's normal.
I said normal for horror. Heck.
Oh, okay.
But
I usually get a box of a dog, 3 parts every day. So
yeah. Right. I have it delivered to me. It's like a dog in the month club or something.
God damn it, that was my joke!
Some assembly required.
I am you, Eddie.
But if one of your players has actually had something of a similar scale happen to them, then they obviously won't be exactly happy with you including that in the game. So it's, as many of these things are, it boils down to an issue of communication between storyteller and the players. Figure out what everyone's expectations are, figure out where the comfort zones are. More importantly, figure out what's outside the comfort zone but not taboo, because that sort of overlap there is the right place where you can start getting the players just on edge, which is the goal of a really good horror story.
That's really interesting. I actually have an anecdote that I got just today, like right before I left for the day at work. Is one of my coworkers in marketing, my coworkers who's also from marketing, showed me a leaked trailer for the first mission for Modern Warfare 2. And I have to be keeping on past day or two, but there's a lot of kind of hullabaloo because it's very, very, very realistic in terms of how it portrays terrorism and how people approach terrorism. And I did not get a chance to watch the trailer, but he said he watched it, and he was uncomfortable and disturbed by what he saw the antagonist doing in the story, and he said the game makes him feel uncomfortable, but in a way that he really thinks he wants to go and buy the game. Yeah. I thought that was really interesting because it made him just uncomfortable enough to be really engaged by the product on a very meaningful level, and the idea of art and story games, interactive games, being a way to comfortably express extremely uncomfortable ideas.
Yeah.
And I thought, God damn, if I could get that into a World of Darkness game, I should bottle that and sell that, because that is, right, to me, that was kind of the idea moment of that is what horror gaming should be, right at that exact level of I'm uncomfortable with this, but still engaged.
Yeah, not just horror gaming, but I think horror in general always strives for that brass ring of,
Absolutely.
Obviously you don't want to push too far, but you do want to disturb and unsettle and create that sort of, that pit in the stomach that you want, that people want it. You know what I mean? That's the weird thing.
Yeah, they want to be horrified or they wouldn't be playing.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting the idea about, and I agree, you have to know the boundaries of your players as well, the people around the table. But I think that makes for an interesting dilemma, for example, if you're running a game at a convention where you don't know the people at the table. So are you intentionally then you're going to scale it back a little bit just to be sure that you don't cross that line, or you're going to say up front, guys, this story is going to contain graphic scenes of dog dismemberment, so if anybody has a problem with that, speak up now. I mean, how would you best approach that?
Or you could just walk to the table and say, "Hi, my name is Chuck."
Dog dismemberment. Yeah, no, I believe it or not, I don't usually push the extreme buttons at my table. Usually it's weird stuff or creepy stuff rather than extreme stuff. I mean, I think there's going to be a few things that you can always assume are taboo. To do with rape, anything to do with animals or children getting hurt, are always kind of a sensitive issue. But if you're telling a horror game, there are certain things. If it's in a horror book, if it's in a World of Darkness book, you have to assume that in meeting new people, this is going to be within their comfort zone because they're looking to play a World of Darkness game. They're not playing Space Ponies or whatever it is crazy kids play these days.
Hey.
Well, shut up about Space Ponies.
That's right.
No, I mean, so they're going to have to be comfortable with some degree of creep and horror and squick factor. It's just you have to kind of know those things that are generally taboo. And if you don't see them in movies, you don't read them in books, you don't see them in the World of Darkness products, then it's probably a good idea to not go there.
Well, I was kind of interesting when I ran 2 sessions of New Wave Requiem at Gen Con, which was the 80s source book we did for Requiem. And the big thing that, when we were developing it and kind of talked about it, is that this is a time where racism and hate crimes against gays was really stronger than it is now. And it wasn't like really bad as in like the 50s or 60s, but it was still really prominent, and it's casual is the big thing. It was very casual. It just kind of, that guy over there is a black guy, and I'm not going to go in the epitaphs, but when I sat down at the table, I said, you're going to meet characters that are very comfortable with saying really horrible things. If you guys are not okay with that, they'll say really horrible things about completely different topics. But they'll still say horrible things that you're comfortable with. And when I said it up front like that, not one person seemed to have a problem with it. Earlier in my gaming career, when I was running Conspiracy X, for those who may recognize that name.
Very cool.
Well, I had it way back in first edition, actually, with a horrible system at the time, but it's much better now. But anyway, I was running it, and I did not have that preface in saying what kinds of things I was going to attempt. And I was running it as very much like a horror game, even though it's kind of a conspiracy sci-fi game. I was doing a lot of horror elements with it. One of the NPCs attempted to rape a PC, and she was not okay with that. And I stopped the game, we sat down and talked about it, and I quickly realized I was wrong. I should not have done that without talking to the player first. And that was my big learning moment, saying this is what you do and don't do. That's what the line is for me with horror gaming. And I had to learn that in a very unfortunate way. It's sad that I had to learn in that respect. It was quickly smoothed over. We went into a direction with the game. Everyone was happy with it. She was totally fine with it after that initial kind of shock. But when I first started doing it just out of the blue, she's like, I am not okay with this. I run into this sometimes with LARP too, because LARP can get very physical. There's certain things that it's at the gaming table you can kind of say, "Why go ahead and smack her in the face?" But at a LARP, to have someone actually do that is a very different kind of reaction. So at live action games, also you have to kind of do, these are the things that are acceptable. They're not acceptable. Anything beyond that has to be completely consensual before it's done, and the players have to discuss it ahead of time. So, yes, I've learned a lot that you really have to be very open with that dialogue.
Well, yeah, I can give a good example of it. I was at a convention about 6 months ago, a local PA convention, Mepicon, and we were playing in a vampire game, and the guy running it didn't tell us what was coming ahead of us, and one of the girls actually walked out on it. We went to this contact we were speaking to, and while we were speaking to the contact, this ghoulish type guy, I never figured out what he was, but he kept reaching over into a box and pulling out small children and ripping their heads off and eating the brains in front of everybody while he was telling us what we needed to do.
Oh my God.
He had a box full of them?
Yeah. He had a box. He would just open the box. He pulled it out. He ripped the scalp off while they were alive and talked to them and started picking out the brain. He was eating it, and the guy was demonstrating it. So the girl just got up, walked away.
Yeah, that's...
Was it like snacks for this guy? Like, what-
Yeah,
I'm trying to figure out how big would the box have to be to do this more than once or twice.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
just keep still. Like some quiet.
we never got that far because the
It's
game
a box of
stopped.
babies. I mean, you can't just have a box of babies there. I mean, come on.
that box is gonna be crying. Let's be clear.
But I mean, that actually speaks to another point, though. Is you talk about what's too far. There's this also weird kind of level with horror where too far is actually okay because it's so ludicrous. And honestly, I would have seen that, but they're going, really? It's just camp almost. You know, it's why would I really be doing that? It just doesn't even make sense. And so at that point in time, I'm not horrified. I'm just amused. So, I mean, there's a point where, and you can play that kind of extremely over the top, almost like the 80s B-movie horror movies where, you know, guys are getting chopped apart with lawnmowers. You know, it's like, it's so ridiculous. You can't even take it seriously.
Yeah.
Well, that's the reaction I get to things like Saw and Hostel. Maybe it's wrong of me, but I just find them wildly amusing because it's just so crazy and over the top. You know, it's just completely mad, implausible scenes, and it loses its horror element and becomes more of a kind of just for giggles, really.
Well,
yeah, really. Like, Saw is really just basically, you know, it's like Arcade from the Marvel comics from the 80s. I'm like, really? Put a bow tie on this guy, for fuck's sake.
You watch the movie to see how far they can actually go.
Okay.
Mark, you have any other questions?
Well, yeah, I was wondering, just kind of on a more general level, where would, as a theoretical question, where would you like to go in your own horror games that you haven't been yet? What kind of things are you most looking forward to doing in the near future? A horror approach or a story or a theme or just a moment of squeakiness that you've not done yet? Your kind of unfulfilled horror fantasy.
Are you picking someone, or are we going to just all start talking?
You guys can just fight over who gets to speak first. That'd be kind of entertaining.
And
Stu, you and I are taking Eddie.
Go.
Not it.
Not it. Well, we'll pick.
Sorry. You know what? Yeah, I'll tell you a story. The issue with horror gaming for me is, as much as I enjoy it, it is very difficult to actually demonstrate horror. It's a real tricky thing to sort of, unless you're going to go to theatrics and create basically a haunted house atmosphere and lower the lights and candles and stuff, it can be very difficult to actually demonstrate a really strong horror vibe. You can sort of get them worked up about the threat level of their characters, but you can do that in any game, whether it's a science fiction game, whether it's D&D, whatever. The one time I think we nailed it was Cult. We did one session of Cult, and I mean, it wasn't so much that it was boundary crossing in the sense that we, you know, had rape or child death or anything like that. But like one character was like a Vietnam vet, and you know, because all the characters had dark secrets because it's Cult, and you know, the one guy was a Vietnam vet, and during Vietnam, he like watched his sergeant sacrifice the Viet Cong to like dark gods, and he didn't understand it. And one guy was like paranoid about the phone company, and everybody got so into it and so messed up about it. It actually freaked everybody out, even though the game itself wasn't that scary. Like, I didn't do a lot to heighten the fear. I just played off the things that they, you know, left before me, this crazy little gory trail of breadcrumbs. Everybody was spooked out, and so spooked out we actually decided not to play it again, because it was like, I don't feel well. Like, it wasn't that fun. Like, it was cool when we had it. Like, it was a great 8-hour session, but we didn't want 16 hours. We were done. 8 hours, packaged, closed, you know.
Cool.
So what I would like to do is I would like to get close to that again. I don't want to, you know, obviously get to that point where we don't want to play it anymore, but I would like to see again where we can, I would really love to spook my players out, really just unsettle them in some, you know, kind of that David Lynchian, like, things don't quite make sense and I don't feel well kind of way.
Yeah.
The whole Twin Peaks thing.
Yeah.
No, interestingly, I actually tried to watch Twin Peaks because it's available for streaming on Hulu and CBS.com and whatnot, and I watched it again, and I wasn't that creeped out at all by it, and I was trying to figure out why it didn't creep me out, and I realized because I knew. I kind of knew what was going on now, because I read the books and whatnot, and I realized that moment was lost, and I think that's one of the kind of conflicts we sometimes have with the game like The World of Darkness, where by the nature of our product we have to put the secrets to the page. I mean, we have to write the books and tell you how these things work out, and players have just as much access to those as storytellers do.
Right.
And so they kind of know what's coming. That takes that element of mystery out of it. And so one thing I would like to do at some point in time is to do a skin game, as I'm thinking of it, is basically where we're going to sit down and we're going to play Vampire the Requiem, and you make your characters, blah, 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 and then they start playing, they realize that actually it's slowly turning into something that's completely not like what's going on.
Yeah.
The downside of this is that this requires that big thing about preparation that I said that I don't do. So, that's kind of the catch-22 I'm having is how can I do a game that slowly evolves into a different game in an organic way? And that's the kind of the hump I'm trying to have to figure out a way to get over yet.
Yeah, that was actually, believe it or not, that's how I introduced my players to the Changeling playtest. I told them, they signed all their NDAs and everything, and they had playtested several games before that. They'd been playtesting all the way back to Under the Reckoning. But they thought we were going to finally sit down and play a game of Mage the Awakening, which is actually the one game, sadly, we have not yet fully played. I think we've sat down with it for a session or two, but we haven't actually gotten a chronicle out of it. So they thought they created these characters who were going to eventually become mages and everything, and I took them through the abduction into Fairy, and they still thought they were playing mage because they had no idea. And so that actually was good because it spooked them out. They didn't know what was happening. There was generally a sense of confusion and disturbance in them. So that was a successful session too, because I subverted their expectations, and even still then, because we were playtesting Lost, and Lost wasn't out, and the players did not have access to that, they were constantly experiencing that sense of both horror and wonderment that's part and parcel of that game. So whenever you can manage that, you really got to nail it.
And that's actually a good point. Is that we just sat for 5-10 minutes talking about open communication to players, finding where the boundaries are, and then turned around and just contradicted our own advice and saying, yeah, this is subvert players' expectations. So this is really, I think horror role-playing games are probably some of the most sophisticated games because there's just so many elements and concerns you have to bring to the table. It's like, you have to talk to your players some amount, but you also have to kind of trick them a little bit because you have to have an element of mystery to it, and it's I think that's why you don't have a lot of horror games so much as games that have horror moments in them.
Yeah.
And I think people say, oh, we had this game, and every game everyone was scooped out and creeped out, blah blah. It's like, you're a liar. I have never seen that happen, unless they're doing like just a consecutive series of one shots, which theoretically it's not really a chronicle at that point in time. You're just basically playing the same game over and over again. So it's such a conflict, and that's why when at conventions people are like, what's your one piece of advice about horror gaming? It's like, don't run a horror game, really. Run a good game and let the horror come out from it.
Yeah.
But that's not really advice so much as hope it works.
Good luck. See ya.
I think trust is a big thing too. I think you have to have players who trust you. So if you're not going to be explicit about the boundaries, they have to know that you're not going to fuck them over. Or if you're going to do a bait and switch,
you don't want them to trust you. By the same time, if your players trust you too much, then the element of horror can be completely
they feel too safe.
They trust you. Like, it's all right. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Must admit, I've always wanted to subvert that feeling of being safe. You ramp up to the end of the chronicle, and there's that one moment where they have a chance to stop the bad guy, and he launches into the 35-minute speech from Watchmen or whatever, and they look out of the window, and the balloon's already gone up. There's the mushroom clouds on the horizon, and it's like, right, same time next week, guys.
And that's definitely something. I remember Justin and I were talking about this at Gen Con a couple of years ago. We're doing a panel on horror and gaming, and he kept mocking me because I kept saying, punish the players and do horrible things to the players, and Justin's like, you mean characters, you don't mean the players. I'm like, no, totally, it's fine.
No.
I mean the players.
Yeah, exactly. But it really is so antithetical because if the players are constantly succeeding, you're not really approaching horror. If the players are constantly failing, they're just frustrated.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of times I would do things like they come into the game, they get their base of operations set up, they settle down, they do a story, they come back to their house, they refresh, they go to the next story, they come back and their house is on fire. And,
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot of that style for me comes from being an old school Cyberpunk 2020 referee, which is the only game I know it basically says screw your players over at every opportunity, fuck them up, make them miserable, and maybe their
This is your
characters
job.
too, but really just abuse them. And so I generally tend to roll my dice openly. I generally tend to be kind of, that guy shot you in the head, you're dead. Sorry, make a new character. Out of news, dead.
Wait,
because
wait
I
for
think
something
that-
to play. Sorry, go on.
No, I was saying is that sense of consequence needs to be there. I think for horror to be meaningful.
Yeah, and you ideally wait for your players and the characters, but especially the players, to get comfortable with something. Going back to what we were talking about, probably the first question about horror, with the recurring NPCs, recurring characters. Build them up, build them up, build them up, build them up. There's his corpse.
Right.
Just completely out of the blue. Someone they're expecting to meet someone, and he's not there, and he's dead.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because what you're doing with recurring characters and so on is you're building sort of the fundamental reality of the world. It's not real because you have the same bum and you have the same taxi driver every time, but it's real enough. And then all of a sudden you're throwing a massive curveball by just killing off part of it, almost on a whim. And that really sort of destabilizes how the players see the world. And all of a sudden they realize, holy crap!
That's
this is
emblemized
happening.
to me by the episode of Buffy, the body, when her mom dies. That to me is just such a great, because it's really not even about the horror of it or about the vampires or whatever. It's just, a lot of TV shows overuse the whole death, whether someone died at the end of the season, someone died at the end of the episode, it's a cliffhanger. It's a kind of a cheap stunt, and it's this kind of way of taking the stakes actually off the table and removes conflict as opposed to creates it. But with that whole thing that her mom dies, it's such a heavy moment, and it's so unexpected, and it's it's that NPC that you've grown to love and you've expected to be a part of the fabric of the series, and suddenly boom, just gone.
There's a similar in I want to say the end of season 4 of House, where they spend an entire year building up a character and then just gone.
Right.
And you think, oh, she's coming back, and she never does. But she kind of does. I'm not gonna spoil it, but really she's dead.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And
Well-
I mean, the nice thing about that is also it's the she starts off dead. They spend an entire episode building up expectations, and they go, no, really, she's dead.
Yeah, that whole that episode of House where they do go back onto how she may have died or whatever. I assume you're talking about Amber.
Yeah.
That's great how they sort of reconstruct the scene and the event. That's a classic two episode series.
The one that always springs to mind for me is the movie Psycho. The old Hitchcock movie. Before my time, but my dad talks about when people go to see it at the cinema, and it's a Janet Leigh movie, who was the big starlet of the day, and then within half an hour into the film, she's dead, and he describes people in the cinema around him just gasping in shock. You can't kill Janet Leigh. What the? And then right from that moment on, all bets are off. Yeah. Great.
Okay. As we sit here in silence.
And a chill filled the room.
Yeah.
And that's actually what you could do with reoccurring NPCs. If they get too complicated, just fucking kill them off. That's fine.
That's right. Right in front of the players. Character, sorry.
Rip their scalp off and
drag the character into a reality.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I love dice in the open. I just roll the dice on the table, let him see. There you go. That was your character. But soak? No soaks. Yeah, it's lethal. You're done.
No, you're dead. Too bad. Sorry. Now, you guys all roll in the open? Did anyone use shields or anything like that? Or
To be fair, I say I remember what dice in the open. I actually do use screens a lot for other stuff. Like, I'm looking for a clue. Okay, I roll dice, and I'll respond based on that. And a lot of times, I'll just roll dice for the sound and say what I was going to say anyway.
Yeah.
But generally, when it comes to like the final battle, the big scene where the stakes are high and the players are emotionally invested when it happens, that tends to be when I put the dice out. And I do that intentionally because I want them to know that we're all going to kind of stand by what these dice say, and the players become much more thoughtful. And to me, that's kind of the two ways you represent violence. You could do the movie violence, tends to be dice behind the screen. You get shot, no big deal, so on and so forth. When you put the dice up front, then it's the stakes are big, someone may die, it could be you, what do you want to do now? And so I do it kind of tactically.
Yeah.
Me too.
me too.
I do. That's exactly what I do. On scenes where obviously I want the mystery there, I hide it. But then during battles and things where people need to know that I'm not dicking with them and that the stakes are serious, that I put it right on the table.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's how I do it as well.
See? We're all the same
Just
person.
somebody one of us, really. I mean, because we're all saying the same thing.
Yes, you are the Chuck Eddie Wilson fan club. I don't know.
That's right.
That's
Web
so
Wilson and Wendy. You can
rustling.
see we all start with the W's.
Well, that is kind
wow.
That is
Whoa.
creepy. That's a story in itself.
Yep. We're the ones who invented the www for the internet. That's us, all three of us.
Oh,
Yeah,
Cool.
we were actually three just regular Joes possessed by the spirit of the internet, speaking with its voice.
That's awesome.
Chuck, you have to do that Shadow Stories. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, there you go. It's in. Yeah, actually, or you just do an SAS about that.
There you go. That works too.
All right, you guys. Starting with Chuck, you want to plug your stuff so everyone knows how to contact you, what they could read about you, and
I have a new fireman's calendar where I'm,
whoa, now.
Great.
no, wait, I'm sorry, I'm NDA'd on that, I can't talk about that one yet.
Oh, okay.
TerribleMinds.com and the Storyverse.com, Shadow Stories, the serial fiction that is funny and profane.
Okay, and Eddie.
Right now, the big thing I'm doing outside of work is WhitechapelProject.com, my interactive fiction. I just put up episode 6 today, and I just actually ran a contest to kill off one of my listeners in the fiction, so that should be fun. And you can find all my other contact links on the side of the page for Whitechapel Project.
Okay, and Stu.
I'm still maintaining a sort of non-blog blog at zeropointinformation.com, just with information about upcoming releases. I'm sort of I've just this week got up to my eyes in funky stuff, but I can't really talk about any of it just now.
Funky Secrets. Outstanding.
Okay, and you can always contact us at Mark.
darkerdaysradio@gmail.com.
Mark,
You can also
there's no pause in that. I didn't like that, Mark. I want to hear it again.
darkerdaysradio@gmail.com.
That was a good. Yeah,
Oh, that was nice.
Much better. Much better.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, one of these days he's actually going to put the .com in the next episode.
Episode12.com. And we're back.
I have asked permission to do that, but you can also follow us on Twitter, just WGPRN on Twitter. And if you have Facebook, just type in Darker Days Radio and you'll find our Facebook fan page. We have 17 fans right now. That's amazing.
Ooh, we're getting up there.
Very cool.
We don't see any Chuck or Eddie or Stu on there, though. Nothing. Never mind. No, sorry.
I see how it is.
No love for us at Darker Days. No, just kidding. And, all right, guys, we're going to be heading off tonight. Thank you for joining us for episode 13. And,
Thanks, guys.
Have a wonderful night. And darkerdays.tk is our website. You can follow me on Twitter, AlucardD20. You can leave a voicemail on Skype if you have Skype at AlucardD20. And if you want to send us an MP3 file, you can do that as well through the email, darkerdaysradio@gmail.com. Have a wonderful night, folks.
Are you ready? Hey, think you can tell us what to do? You think you can tell us what to wear?
All right, folks, and back by popular demand, the after show for Darker Days. Pretty much, we're just going to sit here and just bullshit about everything.
Cock spiders.
Interestingly enough, yeah, the music, spider bites the cock.
Oh, hey, Skype liked us this time. We didn't have any weird chickens.
No.
Apart from the one at the beginning.
That beginning was awesome, by the way. I'm glad I had mute because I was laughing my ass off the entire intro.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I was when Mark first sent that to me. I was just like, okay, he signs the letter Derek. So I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? And I listened to the audio file. I'm like, oh, I get it now.
Fantastic.
We had lots of fun doing that.
Yes, I appreciate you and your wife sitting down to do that for us, Mark. I mean, Derek. I mean, Mark.
Hey now. You starting?
Yeah, how long did you practice the accent for?
15, 20 years.
I'm going to say 20 minutes.
Hey, it's not easy
You're
to
born to play that role.
Yes, it's not easy doing a Liverpool accent, huh?
Yeah, well.
Yeah. So anyway, anything you guys been working on that you can say anything about, or no, really?
No, I'm unfortunately all secreted up right now.
Secreted up.
I'm all secreted.
Anything new on the release schedule, Eddie, for White Wolf that we can talk about?
Proverbial Monsters just came out a few weeks ago. And that's pretty cool. They're monsters and they're proverbial and stuff.
I don't know if we can talk about this, but didn't the blurb for World of Darkness Mirrors hit Amazon and soon move on to RPG.net earlier today?
Curse you, Amazon!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazon is my nemesis.
Alternate morality system.
By the way, if you're looking for any date on a release schedule, go to Amazon.com and look up that product, and I guarantee you the date they have listed will be absolutely the one day you will not find that book.
Of course.
It's like not accurate at all. It's the opposite of accurate.
Right, it's like your non-birthday, It's like, this is the non-release day. This is definitely the day where you will not get the release, because it has not been right. Is this book coming out this date? Well, where'd you get that from? Amazon. Well, then no. It's not. I don't even look at the schedule. I just know it's not going to be that date.
It's like Barnes and Noble have a different day, so we should put Barnes and Noble and Amazon in a cage together, and they can fight it out and see whose release date comes out the most accurate.
Yeah. Release date, steel cage match.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
But no, there is, let's see, depending on your perspective, the Exalted Book of the North is either already out or soon to be coming out. It's kind of a quantum release right now. Some places got it, some places don't. It's kind of strange. Also, Exalted Glories of the Most High, which is the kind of the 3 PDF set of the various different Incarna. That should be coming out in a couple of weeks. I just looked at the final drafts for that, so that should be Brian Glass making the final changes on those. That should be going up, I think, definitely early November, maybe even as early as the 4th. We'll see how that goes. December is Book of the Dead.
Yeah.
I got the title wrong last time, and people freaked out and said, "Guys, it's getting another book." I'm like, no, I just got the title wrong. So now I'm like second guessing myself. Is that the name of the title? I think it's Book of the Dead. But yeah. The other guy. I said Lands of the Dead on my podcast, and I spent 3 days going, no, there's not another book called Lands of the Dead. It's the same book. You changed the title like 3 times.
Yeah, speaking of your podcast, I see you're back at home again, pumping them out.
Well, home, kind of, yeah, sort of. Basically, right now, I'm in a cube with 3 other guys. It's Ethan, John, and the guy I mentioned from marketing who, he's gonna kill me, I fucking forgot his name already. That guy. So we live our desks are right next to each other. So I get there Monday morning, and I'm just like, I'm gonna talk to myself for 15 minutes, and you guys can't talk to me. Have fun. So it's kind of weird. It's like the first one I did real quietly, and everyone was like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No, I'm just getting used to it." And then so the next one I did when nobody else was around, so that's not really helping. So at some point, I have to bug up and just go, "Yes, I'm going to be podcasting now, and you can cope." So,
suck it.
Yeah, kind of the DX theme is very appropriate for that.
Oh, definitely.
And this week it's been the prep for ICC. It's happening like an exit down from where I live. So my wife and my roommate are both heavily involved in running that. So they're all over there partying it up and boozing. And while I'm sitting here talking to you guys, this is how much I love you guys. I'm doing this for you.
Man, let's all booze together.
Actually, I've been drinking a Guinness during the podcast. I've already started.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well,
There's nothing wrong with drinking through a podcast.
No examples there.
No.
Speaking about weird things, and I don't know where this came up, but I was watching TV. What?
What? I just thought we were going to talk about. No, we're not going to talk about growth.
I was
You
watching.
emailed me something to show me these pictures of this growth.
What? Shh, Chuck. Shh, shh.
All right, okay, so we'll talk about that later.
Yes, later. That's
Don't
a different show. Episode 14.
Showing off your cock spider again. I mean, you know.
Yes, cock spider. Boy, we're gonna get so much trouble for that one on the forums. I could see that now. Anyway,
Make a band called Cock Spider. That'd be great. Mark's the bassist.
Yeah.
well, I've heard of a band called Raging Tampon, so why not?
Why are they so angry? I don't understand.
their song was Pulling the String.
Oh,
Oh, Dick.
wow.
Thank you for bringing that memory back up.
Woo! I'm sorry I asked.
Yeah, anyway, I was watching on TV Tom Hanks' original movie Maze and Monsters.
Yeah.
Has anyone seen that movie?
That movie's horrible.
It is
It's
terrible.
fantastic.
I don't know. I sat there and watched it, and it was like, I can't believe they put this on TV.
The worst part is when it was on TV, people were like outraged and horrified, and D&D was evil and killing our children by sending them into the sewers with weapons. And I'm watching it now, I'm like going, really? What?
Those kids were very stupid.
Going
This
into
is the
the
worst party ever.
Yeah, actually, one of those that mine shaft looked like something belonging in Pennsylvania, probably
Probably.
right near your house, Chuck.
Yep. It's actually my basement.
That's where he keeps box of babies.
That's right. My box of babies in
That
my
was
puppy of the month club.
Yeah, baby of the with the puppy of the month. Yes. This month you get the ears.
Oh, a Dalmatian. Good for
Do
my
not mix the
fireman
boxes
catalog.
up.
Yeah, you've become such an expert that you can tell by one little paw piece.
That's right. I'm just that good.
Just that damn good.
By the way, for the record, internet, I have 2 dogs and they're in whole pieces and alive. So everybody.
They are now. It didn't come that way.
No, I assembled.
No, that's why he's got the lightning rod.
That's
They were
right.
IKEA dogs.
Yeah. Promethean is actually a non-fiction book.
Matt McFarlane actually has come back from the dead. It's true.
Yeah, I really don't want to know what he's been doing with that Allen key.
You'd be surprised.
It's under his hat.
Yeah.
It's under his hat. What?
Matt McFarlane's? There's a hat.
Black hat.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh,
That's the question I forgot to ask him when he was on the show. Is his hat really black?
It is.
But
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
He's
Okay,
multiple.
cool.
I have seen the hat.
Ooh, the hat. Now, did he get that in pieces or hat of the
IKEA
month?
hat was the IKEA dog.
Oh man. So, Mark, how's your campaign? Campaign. Why do I keep saying that? Story going.
I was really hoping you were going to ask that because we've had player issues and we've kind of, there's 2 people who are probably not playing in it now and it's all a bit awkward and they're probably listening to the show. So I was really hoping you weren't going to bring that up.
So you suck and we hate you.
So let's dive into this even further. Mark, explain some more. No.
No, we had to have a serious talk the other week, and there's a certain amount of regrouping going on, and I don't know how it's going to turn out. So we're on hiatus at the moment. But up until then, it was going great.
Is it personal issues or?
No, it's just it's the buy-in thing where you got a couple of guys who aren't as into it as the rest of us, and so I think in that kind of situation, rather than to force them to be into it, we should change up and play something that either we're all into, or rearrange the group and find players who are. So we're kind of in the middle of that right now.
Execute the infidels. Sure.
Yep.
I've actually run into that a lot. I noticed that like a couple of games I've run where like one person like, I'm just not really getting into it. And it's weird because in my experience, I always feel bad that somebody's going, I'm really sorry I'm not getting into your game. Like I'm gonna somehow say, liar, you must love my game.
Well, they took it really badly, and I spent the last kind of the following few days feeling awful, like I just disassembled their puppy or something. And then afterwards, I thought, well, the fuck no, I was kind of straight up and honest, and I don't think I should go around feeling bad about this. So now I'm kind of righteously pissed off, which is a better place to be.
Right. We're just anger.
Yeah, yeah, it's good.
Yeah, mine's on hiatus now too because one player had a disagreement in the group over I don't know what it exactly was about. 2 players in my group always go at it in character no matter what. They always wind up fighting about the dumbest thing, so that ruined my game.
That's a shame.
Are we keeping you up, Mark?
What? No. No, sorry.
I'm sorry, was that a boring example?
I didn't mean to do that out loud.
But your life is in fact boring me. Go away.
I'm so sorry.
Fine, I'll shut my mic off. Goodbye. Let's talk about more important things. Mark, how's your life?
Chuck, are you writing anything right now?
Sadly, no. We haven't ran anything in a couple months. Few months, actually. It's been... although we did... I was at a GameCon this weekend, and we played David Hill and Falamina's Machine Site. They're torn apart by Radiation Wraiths adventure. So that was fun. That was good stuff. But no, we were really... I mean, we still have a Changeling game. We're sort of... that actually all the way from the playtest that I referred, we still... We still have that game going, but we haven't gotten together for a little while. It's just people's schedules, and everybody has kids, and Dog in the Month Club, and all kinds of stuff. So.
Yeah, that goes.
Chuck, 45-minute drive. No, I'm kidding. There's always an open spot over at my table. You can kill my players.
Nice. I'll do it. I'll come in and I'll clean house. I'll be the pogrom. It'll be good times.
And maybe
it's just when it comes in the next... when it comes in the next week wearing their skin that you need to worry.
If you come in with a box full of babies, I'm going to worry.
Well, all right. Alive or dead?
Whichever, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Or
Vince, these guys you're playing with, Vince, are these people you just met just to game with, or are they were your friends beforehand and you then started gaming with them, or?
Well, I put an ad in the paper. No, I'm just kidding.
Craigslist.
Craigslist, yes.
I'm looking for homoerotic encounters, and these people just showed up.
You know what? You'd be surprised what you find on Craigslist. I've seen vampire games on Craigslist. I've seen plenty of games.
I saw a guy trying to sell a dead body on Craigslist once. I was like, that's it, I'm done.
The best one is the guy selling his soul on eBay, though.
Oh, yeah. You know, actually, a funny... I mean, it's not really exactly a very World of Darkness-y story, but there's one of my... I have a Flickr photo stream, and one of my Flickr contacts, she was, looking through Craigslist for her amusement factor, and she found a guy who was claiming that he needed help time traveling. He needed to go back in time, and he needed all these weird parts, and he needed he had all these strange artifacts he required, feathers and stuff like that. Curiously, her photo, a photo of hers from an Indian burial ground, was a reference photo in this guy's Craigslist ad. So she emailed him back and told him well, you can continue to use my photo provided you use your time machine to go get my blanket from when I was a young girl. And he wrote her back. He's like, I will do that for you. Thank you for it. Was this crazy time traveler.
Okay.
Yeah, welcome to Craigslist.
That's Craigslist for you.
This is why the internet frightens me.
Yeah.
No, I just thought you frightened yourself, Eddie.
Well, that too. I'm often on the internet to see how this kind of all works together.
Right, because you are the internet. You're 1/3 of it.
1/3 of the internet.
Right.
But nobody says www anymore, Chuck, remember?
I know. That's how we get you, because you forgot about us. We'll sneak attack you. That shit is true.
Chow. Like ninjas.
Sneak attack you with D20 or D10 sneak attack you?
Yeah, well, I mean, you pick. I don't care.
Combat advantage. It's not sneak attack now, it's more combat advantage.
Combat advantage.
Oh god, that's true, yeah.
Speaking about
bitches, catch up.
What do you guys think about 4th edition D&D? You think it's just too lame now, or... I never really asked you guys what you thought about it.
I haven't played it. I like the idea. I mean, it's kind of a goofy, obviously D&D existed, and it was the foundation for all things that were computer role-playing-y, hit points, and it kind of moved into the MMO sphere, and now D&D came out and kind of cannibalized the MMO sphere, which was cannibalizing D&D. It's like a thrice regurgitated process, but I don't know, it's kind of cool, so
yeah,
you just need to sit down with it.
It plays surprisingly well,
Yeah,
that's something that you look at it and you think, oh god, this is going to be some kind of hideous mess. It's got influences from all over. The original games influenced MMOs. MMOs have influenced this, and lots of people, when they're sort of talking about the game, use those MMO influences as sort of bad points, and I don't see it.
Oh yeah.
If it's out there and it works, steal it.
Amen.
That's kind of where.
What as the great mathematician once said, plagiarize. Well, be sure to always be calling it, please, research.
Yeah. Right.
It's true, actually. But I was kind of in the same camp when it first came out. I was just like, my God, what is this? This is World of Warcraft, a role-playing game, and we've already written that, so why are they doing it again? And I actually played in a session of it, and I had a surprisingly good time, and I was like, well, maybe that was the Dungeon Master, and then I've played it another time, and I've also read the books and talked to people who played it, and it's actually a really cool game, I have to say. There are 4 or 5 games that are running at the office right now. I mean, it's really, most everyone I know at the office has switched over to 4E at this point, who's running D&D.
Didn't you at White Wolf do EverQuest too, at one point?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, I thought so. Okay. I don't see that anymore. Is that completely off your plate now?
You don't have the license for that anymore. Yeah.
Same
with the World of Warcraft game. The license expired on both of those, and but I don't technically I can't talk about the legal consequences of that. But really, I just don't know. As far as I understand, this is purely me guessing. I think it was kind of a mutual decision. It's like, that was fun. I'm not gonna do that again.
Yeah, some of those MMO games don't translate well into pen and paper. So.
Yeah, I was just dreading Sword and Sorcery picking up something like City of Heroes as well with the trifecta.
Oh, I saw the City of Heroes playtest and the what was it, the free guide they had, but I never saw anything after that. So.
No,
yeah, I have to, actually.
In theory, it's still in production, but we've not seen it in going on 5 years now. So who knows when it'll be done?
Right.
Interestingly enough, the NDA has expired now that you reminded me of that. Way back in 2003, I was approached to initially work on the City of Heroes role-playing game.
Oh, so it's your fault?
No, well, Z-Man Games was one of the companies that was in the process of bidding for it, and they did not get the bid, but if they had got the bid, I was approached to be one of the people to help design and write that game.
Interesting.
And in retrospect, I'm glad I did not. Because really, it's not a criticism of one product. I think it's more just kind of, I'm looking at this a little bit because now that I'm inside of an MMO company, I've been talking to people who've worked in MMOs all of their career versus people like me who've worked in RPGs all their career. And there's a lot of similarities. The one big thing is that when you play an MMO, the lore, the background, the world is often secondary to the experience of playing the game. In an RPG, it's often the experience of the game. Because we have books and books and books of lore. And in MMO, you go, oh, right, how many fucking bat belts do I have to get? That's all I care about. And so I think this is kind of dichotomy is where the process of the background really, or the priority the background has really is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oddly enough, throwing back to 4th edition D&D, I play an awful lot of City of Heroes, and something like 4th edition where everything is fundamentally a power would actually be a really cool way of approaching a City of Heroes role-playing game. But, if we hadn't already had D&D 4th edition, I'm not sure how much traction that idea would have had to begin with. And then you get into the whole dichotomy between the experience of playing versus the experience of lore and so on and so forth. It's an interesting concept.
Yeah, I'm more
like Champions Online. I've not even played it or seen much about it, but it strikes me as a bit weird because Champions actually has a very detailed, realized world. But at the end of the day, how many people are playing it going, I really want to play with the Ratbat and the agents of whatever they were. How many people are really going into it, okay, I want to play a different superhero game, and are just completely tossing out the 15, 20 years of hero games history and canon.
Most of them, from what I've seen.
Right, so I'm like, why was that license necessary? I don't know. I mean,
people play like that's the thing that you get into like even World of Warcraft. I mean, it's not that it has some gigantic rich history, but people get on there and I'm like, I'm an orc named Dick Puncher, and you're like,
Cock Spider.
Zeitgeist there, Cockspider. Yeah, it's like, okay.
Only you, Chuck. Only you.
But seriously, like, you get on and it's like guys have like, my name's like Tony. You're like, you're Tony? That's what you came up with. Okay, we're all playing here.
Sure.
Chuck admitted that was your character.
There are MMO players who do really want to get into the lore. I mean, I really should say, that's a portion of the game. But there are people, I mean, even on EVE Online, which is notorious for people beating the crap out of each other in various and horrible ways, there are still a percentage of players who really, really dig into the lore and really love it and really think it's fascinating. But when you do an RPG interpretation of that, what you have is a group of people who, the percentage of people who like the lore of the MMO and play role-playing games and are willing to spend the time and energy to look at that intersection to the point of actually running a game of it. And so you have this kind of diminishing returns of, the Venn diagram of, this circle and this circle with a very small slice kind of in the middle. So I think it's kind of where, at least from my perspective, where some of the frustration comes in. As a designer, I would be like, how do I have to write a game to appeal to this small slice, but really also appeal to the two larger slices? That would be a huge challenge. And working in other licensed games, that's always a tough challenge. And people who like the license and also are gamers trying to take that small section of the audience and expanding it to something larger than that. And that's why I have huge respect for people who do games like the Angel role-playing game, the Supernatural role-playing game, because it's a huge challenge to take those licenses and really blow them up into a larger audience.
Now, Eddie, are you flying through the air while talking? Because I'm just kind of curious. I hear a lot of wind noise. Are you on an airplane? Or no, I'm just kidding.
No.
I hear crickets when Eddie talks. Like, seriously, I hear little chirping.
Yeah, I hear that every once in a while, but it's either he's in a room with Darth Vader or he's flying in a plane.
Maybe he's on an iron lung. Maybe it's because he's dead.
That could be it.
I see dead Eddie.
You said it was dead earlier.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe this is why.
Well, speaking about MMOs, I think the best line that I've ever seen one of my friends say was, we were playing EverQuest a long time ago, EverQuest days. He goes AFK, sits down, comes back an hour later, he's dead. And he's just like, he's like, how did I die? I was AFK. Didn't the monster see that? And I'm like, oh, jeez. He expected the monsters to actually say, oh, AFK, I won't attack him. I'll come back later.
We'll leave this one alone.
He's sleeping. It's more convenient for him later on.
See, now I have this vision of like this MMO murder mystery. It's like you have the body of the Avatar lying there. It's like who killed him, who was at the time, who had the best benefit from killing the character when he was AFK.
When I first played EverQuest, I was actually Marty Henley, the guy who does Shadow Stories with me, and also wrote for Hunter. We were both playing, I guess, Wood Elves or whatever they were at the time, and we were up in that giant like treehouse city.
You kept falling off.
Well, no, there was like some some character. I don't know if it was actually a girl, but it was a female character. Was up there like she was asking us a lot of questions about the game, and sarcasm, of course, doesn't translate well over the internet, and it doesn't translate well for MMOs. Because she asked like, "How do I get to somewhere?" And Marty's like, "Oh, you just jump right off the ledge here, just silently just disappeared off the ledge, and then you look over, and there's just this crumpled elf body at the bottom." Whoops.
Oh dear.
That did not translate well.
Many a times lagging, going around those turns and going whoop right off the edge.
Fly away.
And then crud.
Yeah. Spoosh.
Become a cock spider.
Right. We all become cock spiders.
Eventually.
I got killed in the Eve tutorial twice. Does that count?
No.
Oh.
The first time I was playing Eve, I had been hired for like a week, and they're like, you should play Eve to learn the products. Okay, fine. So I was playing a tutorial. And what I didn't realize is that when you go out into space for the first time, this is the old tutorial, when you go out into space for the first time and start, mining and learning how to shoot things, other players can come to that space too.
Yeah, right.
And so, guy comes up to me like going, give me all your money or I'm going to shoot you. I'm thinking, oh, this is the NPC, so I attack him, and he's one shot, poof, dead. I'm like, what the hell happened? So I go back.
This is not fun for me.
Right. And so the guy's like, no, seriously. It's like, oh, you're the player. I'm sorry. He's like, oh, it's cool. Give me all your money and I'll teach you stuff. I'm like, okay, here's money. Okay, cool. Pfft, dead. I'm like, what? Fuck this game.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm learning important lessons about life.
Yes.
While there's a lull, guys, I'm going to bail out on you here and leave you
how dare
chat
you,
up with yourselves. I know, how dare I. Sorry, there's a Phillies-Yankees game on, and it's the World Series, so I got to go look at it.
What's that?
Oh,
I know.
No. You don't go anywhere, Chuck. You're hostage here, so.
Yeah, I believe it. I literally have tried to take this headset on like 4 times, and it won't come off my skull. I blame you guys. It's like Saw. I'm stuck in a Saw movie with Skype.
All right, Chuck, you take care.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good
Thanks,
one.
Chuck.
Have a good one.
Bye.
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 Yeah,
Bye.
I'm going to bail as well. I've got work in. I've got to be awake in something like 5 hours now, so I should probably at least attempt sleep.
That's cool. All right, now, like Monday when I saw you on Twitter, I have not gotten any sleep last night.
God. Yeah.
All right.
Catch you
I'll
guys
go too
later.
then.
Hey, thanks, Stu. Thanks a lot. It was fun.
Take care.
Yeah.
And then
Well,
there leaves.
I'll go as well because everybody else is leaving. So
Oh well, fine. You just follow the group and get the heck out of here too. Then
I'm such a lemming. Just dive right off the cliff and fall down from the Tree City.
that's right. All right, everyone, have a good night. Good night, folks.
Cool. Thank you guys very much.
Bye.
Good night.